Good evening, I'm Oral Gibbs, and welcome to Oral Gibbs Live. And with me this evening is one of the longest serving CEOs of a government-owned corporation, Mr. Mingo. How you doing, sir?
Good evening, Oral. Good evening to the viewers. It's glad to be. I'm glad to be back.
Well, aren't you one of the longest serving CEOs of a government-owned corporation?
The last I checked, I think I think Oral. I think it's about 14 years now that I'm at the harbor in that position, and yeah, it's been a long time, but I'm still there. Yes.
You was a very young guy when you started there.
Yeah, I was the youngest director started there. I believe 30. I was 30 years when I started. Yeah. But now, nowadays there's so much rules. I think with all these rules, things change. But I'm honored to be in that position, and it's been a great time at the port.
Was it that same size when you took over there?
No, not really. I mean, we started from very small. I think when you speak in revenue terms, we were about 5-6 million revenues. I think today we're close to the 50 million revenue. So, it has really increased in size.
But you also had more piers built and everything and so forth, right?
Yes, we had. Of course, we had two different expansions. We had expansion in 2001. We had expansion of cargo as well as the new pier. And also we had the second expansion, that was, I believe, in 2007, where we built the second pier with also the surrounding properties as well.
And then you had the water plants or pier.
Yeah, that was completed. Yeah, that was completed. Well, water plants pier was built, I believe, that was I think 3 or 4 years ago. And then, of course, last year we finalized the land area, the development of the water plants on the land area.
Beautiful.
Yeah, but the feedback is great. I think it's now in operation since December, and I think the guys, Mr. Adi Richardson, is doing a great job to get it going. It's not going to happen overnight, but I think the reviews are great. And they are also preparing now for the up-and-coming season. I think there's also a program they will be filling in for the summer as well.
And I noticed that events are kept there and people go out to it, so it's serving a purpose.
Yes, and with projects like that, like it's really a social project in the sense of the connectivity with the cruise industry as well, with not only with upper town, where of course you have the jewelry stores, the larger stores, but it's also connecting down street back to town, where then you have more connectivity and spread of economic spread in Phillipsburg.
Is there any plans to acquire more property in that area? Because right now there's a problem for taxis and other people come into that particular pier.
Well, Aurel, I think you're following also in the media that there were a lot of issues concerning parking. Right. Parking is an issue. And we are in the background, we are having plans to do something about the parking. We've also had discussions, of course, with Nature Foundation about the turtles. There will be a turtle program coming online together with Nature Foundation to deal with the turtle awareness in Great Bay. That's a long story. I think Mr. Shadow can explain that more. But indeed, we are looking at making sure that water plants is sustainable, and that is very important. Sustainable is not only about making money, but also making sure that in down street, people are participating with that development. I think there was a lot of discussions on not many people understand the cruise industry. Yeah. For example, if there's a big ship in or cancellation of a ship, who really is aware in Dutch Quarter or Middle Region about a cruise ship or passengers, and it's very important that awareness comes, and that is also one of the reasons. I believe 2 weeks ago you had Michelle Page with the FCC came in. But she didn't only came in alone. She also brought the executives from the cruise lines themselves, which you basically get a full explanation on what's happening in the industry.
So all the people there with her represented the different cruise lines that do business with St. Maarten. Yeah,
that's correct. You have about 10 FCC member lines. You also have non-FCC member lines. Right. So Royal Caribbean Corp and Carnival Corp are actually the two largest cruise lines in the world, and we have, as St. Maarten, as port, we have those strategic agreements with guaranteed passengers for St. Maarten. When you look at Disney, for example, Disney is a much smaller line. I believe they only have 2 ships right now, and that is a smaller line, a smaller cruise line.
When it comes to, I understand we lost ships to a neighboring island. Is that correct? And how many ships did we lose?
Well, Oral, it's you have, look, you have X amount of calls you lose, so it rotates. So normally what you would get is from one line you'll get more calls, and from another line you'll lose calls. For example, just take a look at the airport. JetBlue stopped flying to San Juan, but the Seabourn, I believe Seabourn Airways and Wizz Air or Air Caribbean picked up some of that slack. That is also what you have with the cruise lines. For example, maybe typical St. Maarten, we complain when we lose something. For example, Disney and NCL, but also you gain. For example, the Harmony ship, the largest ship in the world, is coming as well in November. So it's a balance. Do we share the details of those itineraries? We don't share that. But what you're also seeing, and you know, we have to be very careful on that. We came off a high of 2 million passengers, and we're now falling back to the normal level. Our normal level for, when you look at our financial modeling, our normal level of passengers is around the 1.6, 1.7 million. And that is where the level, the exit level for this year is going to be. The exit for this year is going to be 1.7 million. I believe Michelle Page during the meeting in Parliament said 1.425, and I of course whispered in her ear, say those numbers are not correct, but those are only FCCA member lines.
Oh, okay.
So you also have non-FCCA member lines, like European lines, which are not part of that count. So, you know, when it comes to numbers, you know, the port crunches numbers every day. And you know, there's a lot going on. So you know, not to jump, but indeed competition has increased. I'm not going to deny that. I've been saying that for years, and that's also one of the reasons why I asked Michelle Page, FCCA, and the executives to come to St. Maarten and to bring back the awareness on what needs to be done.
You know, they spoke about the traffic congestion and so forth. And many years ago, I heard about a plan for the main road leading to the port. Are there still plans to really widen that road?
Yes and no. What happened is we had a master plan made up. The master plan, we have a master plan for the port, as well as cruise, as well as cargo. Very detailed. It's also part of our strategic plan 2019. As you maybe have read in the paper, that we are finalizing our investment plan 2021. Which I'm very excited about, but there's still a lot need to happen. When you looked, of course, at the project, the causeway was only part solution for traffic, and then when you look at Phillipsburg, you still have, of course, the ring road, which the dredged sand from the port was used to create the basis foundation of the ring road. What we're looking at, and I hope we can work on that in the near future, once the investment plan 2021 is completed, we will sit with the right departments, for example, like VROMI, and start integrating what needs to be done for the traffic. But indeed, you know, people complain because when there are ships in port, there's traffic. But I was driving a day there, it's off season. When there's no ship in port, you also still see traffic on the Pondfield Road. And that needs to be looked at. It needs to be solved because, you know, driving from the airport to the harbor at that time with the executives, of course, we had an escort, but of course, I was also a bit embarrassed that, you know, we didn't have much ships in port, so the traffic was relatively heavy, yes.
You know, sometimes when I drive on the road going to the port, it bothers me to see people walking, and there is no security. In other words, you don't see police officers on the road. You see sometimes people bothering the visitors, or you see people in a wheelchair struggling. And I ask myself, how long is this going to continue?
To give you an update, Oral, is the walkway which you see now on the roadside was supposed to be a temporary walkway. The main walkway had to be on the water side. That was also one of the reasons why there was a property between Doc Maarten and Bobby's Marina, which we had bought, and that was sold as well. And the reason when we sold it, there also was an element in the in the structure of the lot that on the water side there must be a connectivity with the port. So the port connectivity should be for walking water side towards connected to the boardwalk.
Is that going to happen sometime?
Well, we're not the only, look, that property is not the only property you have. Of course, Bobby's Marina, I believe Mr. Velasquez has also initiated to be part of it, and Doc Maarten as well, which is on that side. Now, of course, you have the Royal Caribbean property, which also has already a walkway on the water side. So that is actually the master plan to move the walkway. When you talk about security, there is security. Is there enough security? We had, of course, also a meeting with Minister of Justice where we're working on to see how we can work together with the resources. Resources is always an issue because don't forget you also have to cover the whole boardwalk.
Right.
And then you have, of course, the bicycle crew. We do have a partnership with the police, but end of the day, there's always a balance between the amount of hours and how much ground can you cover at that time. But for sure, this year, what we've been looking at as Port is to implement the security plan, and part of the security plan is also beefing up security. I mean, I remember several years back when we reviewed the security contract of the port, because part of it is outsourced, and we also have our own security people that needed to be beefed up, because we also had many visits from Homeland Security from Washington, which were visiting the port and making sure that we are up to par, and that is an ongoing development security.
So how do you feel about the meeting in Parliament recently with the FCC and those representatives from the different cruise lines?
Well, I think, Oral, I always say a bit bitter and sweet. I mean, I've been screaming my ears off the last 2 years. Listen, we need to do something from starting the FCA conference, which was actually reinventing. We had the team reinventing. And basically, for your viewers, reinventing is basically get back to, I think Michelle said, I don't want to use political terms, get back to basics. But we were good at those things. So we just need to look and see how we can fix elements. It's not everything you need to fix in huge investments, but there's also small areas where we can work on. The meeting itself, I think the FCC was very straightforward. I also believe that she did not blame any government, and there even was a discussion in Parliament, but if government changed so much times, what happened where investors made? I think the focus was more, what is the private sector doing? The private sector in this area has not really developed the product further, because Oral.
Nothing new, Mr. Mingo. Michelle Page was here on my show on Speaking of Everything about, I think, 10 years ago, and she said the same thing. And it seems like we're not listening. Correct.
That is, and when you get at a stage, of course, when your numbers start dropping, then it's more of a reactive area of what do we do now. So what has actually, since she visited, what has happened? Because, of course, there was a visit, there was, of course, a public meeting, and then, of course, your viewers are going to ask you, but what really has happened? Has anything happened? Yes, something has happened. A private initiative was actually kept, and we're actually going to create with the private sector a cruising association. This association basically will not only promote, but will also identify the challenges we have within the industry. There's so much reports, so much information out there. You can get it online. The BRIA reports, and those BRIA reports are very detailed. But what is very surprising out of those reports is that people are not only coming back to St. Maarten to shop, they're coming back for an experience. And the question is, Oral, if you were visiting St. Maarten every year on a cruise ship, repeat visitor, I think we haven't come up with anything new. You saw the Rainforest project, for example, is coming online. That is a more of a tour-oriented experience, but I think more needs to be done. That alone is not enough, but more needs to be done when you look at experience.
I'm going to go back to Michelle Page again, because when I spoke with her on Speaking of Everything, which is another show that we do many years ago, she spoke about all these different new activities that need to come online, and that the local people can also get involved. But I don't see the local people getting involved. What's happening? What's required for the average local entrepreneur to get involved with the cruise industry and also make money?
Well, Oral, on one hand, I won't fully agree with that. I do see a change. I think when we kept the FCA conference in 2014, we had one day for all the local entrepreneurs, for the locals. We invited them. I think it even was for free. So a lot showed up. But you might not see it directly because you're not always directly involved on tours. But there's a lot of opportunities.
Do they have business now that they're doing business with the cruise industry?
Yes and no. Normally how it goes this way is you have the larger tour operators, which do the more of the larger investment. Like for example, you have you have a tour with let's say with the Jeep tour or Safari tour, whatever. You have those tours, but what you normally see is that a smaller tour operator will actually work under the umbrella of the larger tour. That's how it starts. And usually when that smaller one becomes a bit bigger, then they get a chance to sign an agreement with the cruise lines to expand their business. What I should say very important is the business, of course, has changed as well. 10 years ago, you had a vessel of maybe 2,000 passengers. Today, you have these vessels of 6,000 passengers coming in. So they're looking at larger tours. They're looking at, can you handle 100 or 200 people at the same time to move them out? So that is where that balance comes in. How I would see it is I think now with this initiative, the cruise initiative, I think you'll be able to also be now an associate member. So you don't need to go to be a member of the FCCA in Miami. You can be a member here, and then based on that, you can also be part of the industry. But there's a lot of opportunities. But what you've also seen is now also a shift taking place that. Wait a minute, not only small vessels come anymore, you have these huge vessels coming. Yeah. And then usually what we try to do as port, we try to bring the older players together with the younger players, because I must say that you need new entrepreneurs to bring more innovation back in the product.
And I know you as a local and myself, you're very concerned about locals getting involved. So let me ask you now this. For the average local person watching this program this evening, and they're sitting at home and say, oh, I have a great idea and I think I can set up a tour with the cruise industry. How do I go about doing that? Could I contact Mr. Mingo, or do I have to go to Miami and speak with the FCCA, or how?
Well, there are two angles. I think the first angle would be is you can always contact the port via the port website, www.portseman.com. You can send us an email. We usually respond very quickly. We have a commercial team which will respond. That is one. You can also usually I'm gonna say you have to go every Friday evening at Walter Plans, but usually we always are Friday evening, so you can have that discussion going, and we share ideas. But I think also, for example, this year FCC will be in Puerto Rico. For the ones who really want to take part in it, the FC Conference will be in Puerto Rico in September. I believe even on election day it starts, the FC Conference. But then I would, if someone really wants to know and get to know, feel free to call the port, and then you can also take part in going there with the port. We're open to that. But what I notice is that we don't get much requests. It's like they talk about it. But they're like, it's not coming fast enough. We do have new players in the scene, and what you also have, of course, is tours from other islands which try to duplicate and try to come to Simon to try and change the experience of that tour. But those are the contacts we have, which then we could bring together. So that is my my approach on how they should do that.
Now, are there any plans by the industry, the FCCA, or the ships to invite our members of parliament for a one-week cruise on their ship?
No, that is not. Or with all the rules, with all the rules now, it's very difficult. Look, for example, with the good corporate governance rules, integrity, cruise lines have even gone further and altered the anti-corruption rules, and people are not aware of that. Even if there's an inaugural call, so if there's a new ship coming online, for example, in Miami, and you get invited to go on the ship to see the ship and the features, we as port director or port official or government official are not allowed to take part. And the reason for that is all those new rules with the anti-corruption rules in the U.S. So they're very strict when it comes to that. So when you talk about inviting parliamentarians, no, that will not happen. I guess they'll have to go to the travel agent and get their own crew. So
I mean, just to get them familiar with the industry, you know.
Yeah, I think the best way to get familiar with the industry is the trade show in Miami. That's usually in March. And that is where everything happens. You have all the suppliers, you have all the islands. You can even talk to all the islands. Of course, some of the islands are happy that the numbers went up. Our numbers, of course, went down a bit. But there's no, in my opinion, at this time, there's no level of concern. The only concern I have is that we need to get all the stakeholders up to par. I've been having some discussions as well with Minister Arundel, Minister of Tourism, on the STA. I mean, the STA has been it has been taking too long for it to get established, because right now, the problem St. Maarten has is promotion. And I'm going to tell you, bottom line, the issue we have is promotion. Our product is still relatively average higher than other islands. Yeah. We do have challenges which we can fix, but the problem right now we have is promotion, getting the budget out there and make sure we promote St. Maarten. Because even if you go Miami or in Europe, or even I was in Dusseldorf, you see they're advertising Curacao, they're advertising Aruba on the talk shows, Wheel of Fortune, whatever. You hear Aruba, it's always there, and you know, that is one concern I have.
But Aruba has a great plan. Just the other day, I saw Aruba. I think it was one of the ministers speaking to one of the big travel agents, and he was explaining their plan up to 2020. And they have this tram that's run through Oranjestad.
Yes.
It's beautiful. So they have a plan, what they're doing. Now, I know you have a plan at the port, but do we as an island have a real plan for this industry?
Well, Oral, let me also explain you. You know, when you have Dutch ministers coming to St. Maarten, they visit government, and they also usually visit the port, and there's a reason for the port. Last time I had a meeting with Minister Plaskerk as well, and he said, but the port always has their plans, they have the master plan in order, everything.
Right.
And what was sometimes very surprising to him is that for example, from government side, and this has nothing to do blaming government, right. If you compare with Aruba, you said it, they have their plans. Right. And that is actually what he was missing a bit. But then I don't really go to blaming government. I think these initiatives should also be coming from the government-owned companies. We had it just before the show started. Is in my 14 years sitting at a port, we never really had a meeting with all the directors of the government-owned companies and share those strategic plans and sit together and make sure there's one voice and that we can also assist the shareholder in getting it done. I mean, you know my opinion already is I am not in the business of blaming governments. That is not my role. I'm an executive and try to execute based on plans which are there. But I do agree with you. The port can have a plan, and as Michelle Page said as well, the port alone cannot do it. There needs to be an overall development plan, this destination plan for St. Maarten. And I think the government-owned companies play a very, very important role in if it's now infrastructure, if it's now boat ports of entry, name it, they play a very important role in that.
Well, government-owned companies make up almost 40% of the GDP of St. Maarten. That's huge.
Yes, that is. If you just take, we did an economic impact study from KPMG. If you just, for example, take cruise is about 22% of GDP. Cargo is about, I think, 4%, and then you also have the yachting industry, which is about 10%, according to that report. So if you're looking at the marine sector by itself, I mean, you're talking about almost 1/3 of GDP. So you're right. If you look also even at the good jobs which are hiring locals, most of the locals, our talents, are in the government-owned companies. And you know the issue I have been having over the last 14 years is that a government-owned company is like a hybrid. On one hand, it's public, your shareholder is public, but by law, legally, you are private. You are NV. And that is the balancing act, which you've been seeing over the last 2 years. You know, we had to do integrity. We have an integrity committee. We had to do extra reports on good corporate governance. We did now a risk analysis of the risk enterprise. You also the discussion on the possible public inquiry from the prosecutor office, which they're looking more at how is the bestuur, how is the company run from all three levels, and we have been working with them to try and answer all the questions as well. So all of that put in a nutshell, it's a difficult environment to do business, and that is what I've been seeing is you've been seeing it with other government-owned companies. Is there's been a lot of issues in the media, which doesn't help. By the way, that doesn't help the port. That doesn't help myself either. Not having them fierce online and making sure they execute their strategic plans.
But I have to add here one thing, and I see with you at the port meeting the social responsibility of keeping the public informed. You do that well, and not because you're here, because if you didn't do that, I'll say it. The airport with Mrs. Babega, who's no longer there, also used to do that. But there are more government-owned companies that don't do that, that don't really see the importance of appearing on a show like this, keeping the public informed of what they're doing. That's still lacking among most of the government-owned companies, and that's regretful, I think.
Yeah. Well, Oral, I mean, when I started at the port, I remember in those early days, you wanted me to come. Yeah, that was right. You even was screaming my name. I want to have you on the show. But I believe in also a certain development. I also want to also thank the board of directors of the harbor. I think without them, it is impossible to do my work as the CEO, because the board and the CEO or the director, they need to work together. And what you've often been seeing is that you've seen friction between a board of directors and the director. In our opinion, in our culture in the port, we keep all of those things within. And the reason we do that, we keep it within, because that makes also the decision-making process strong. That also helps me as a voice of the St. Maarten Harbor group of companies to come up to the public, and which I promised a year ago when we had all of these issues coming on, that I was not going to communicate or react on things in the social media, but I myself would come out to come on shows like you. I was actually on PG82 with Lady Grace on Monday. We had to cover the total story, and I'm going to do that more. Also to the awareness at the port, having the general public more involved in port activities. We are going to do that, but I'm doing that on a structural way. We see it. We are a social partner, but you also have to look, of course, at the state of the industry. Right now, we're going through a critical era when it comes to we have a drop of revenue. So it's not always I'm going to come on your show and have good news. There is some alignment, some changes in the industry which I need to adjust on. And also 4 years ago, Oral, we have changed the business model of the harbor. The harbor usually was run more operational minded on cargo and cruise. Now we have two other pillars, which would be then the yachting/ferry part of it, and also the real estate part. And there is a plan. That strategic plan is being executed. Sometimes when you execute things, it doesn't always happen as planned, but that is also the risk of doing business. So that change, I hope to continue to share that with the general public.
Giga Yachts, you're still interested in playing a role there?
Well, Oral, since you bring it up, it's a bit of not a touchy subject. I mean, when I found a letter last week from Shell.
Really?
From Shell, I found a letter from 2001, and the Shell basically was the company which started the first company started fueling in the port in Point Blanche 40 years ago. And when I saw the letter, I started to smile, because fueling only took part in Point Blanche. We were actually the port, together with Shell, was the first company to deal with all of these vessels and to deal with the maritime fueling. So I sometimes smile when you hear that we should not be going in that business. But Giga Yacht business is something is part of our strategic plan. We are going to look at that seriously. For example, for the general public as well, a Giga Yacht is, in simple English, a mini cruise or small cruise ship. You're talking about, for example, the Eclipse that is owned by the gentleman from St. Bart's, the Russian gentleman, Abramovich. That has 70 crew members on board, and the value of that vessel is $1.2 billion. It takes about a million liters of diesel. Wow. So you're talking about a huge, huge possible revenue. So To answer your question again, yes, that's part of our plan, but we are going to really do that structurally as well, and that will also be one of the highlights in the investment plan 2021.
Now, when a cruise ship pulls into port, right, and we see a beautiful ship cruising in with 3,000-4,000 visitors, how do you charge that ship? It is by tonnage? How is it done?
Yeah.
How much? What's the average?
Well, Michelle Page said it is when a ship comes in, for example, Oasis of the Sea. Yeah, $1 million. That's $1 million only for that day.
But $1 million. I hear $1 million, but break it down a little bit.
Okay, let's break it down. Normally, what you do out of the BRIA report, you have the expenditure. How much money do the passengers spend on shore? According to the BRIA report, it was between the $180 and $190.
Right.
So basically, you'll take the 5,000. Let's say it's 5,000 passengers. You take the 5,000 passengers times $180. So that makes about what would that be? About $900,000 only on the expenditure. But then you also have, of course, the port dues, which you need to pay. And the port dues are actually split between the head tax, which is, I believe, around $7.
$7?
Yeah, I think about $7, and there's additional security fee, which is in there as well. I think $1.50, $1.25. And next to that, of course, you have the vessel charges, the gross tonnage charge, the pilotage charge, and also the lines handling, and the additional charges to the vessel. So those are actually minimum charges. End of the day, the most important thing for when you're bringing in crews, and then of course the viewers might say, but why is he not talking about cargo? Cargo, of course, with the containers, cargo follows the consumption. So, Oral, if me and you are not buying enough groceries, we are impacting our cargo business. And end of the day is about the economy. It's about the consumption.
But I was present last year, December, for that French cargo line. It's CGM. Yeah. And I heard the executive from that company very optimistic about Maarten.
Yes, it's what we have done. We've been working closely with our partners, Intermar Maduro Port Services, and also I want to also say good evening to Mr. Pelgrim, because he's one of the icons in the cargo industry, and he's really helped together with the port. He has helped us to figure out how do we find the balance between getting the containers on shore, so for local consumption, but the growing area for cargo is actually transshipment. And you saw that ship. That ship was very important because that ship is also, a lot of it is transshipment. And transshipment is basically to the surrounding islands. That is where the opportunities are, and that's also one of the reasons why we bought a state-of-the-art Model 6 crane.
Right.
And that goes on. But those are actually huge investments. When you only look at a P&L or a balance sheet, that is not always the most important. I think you have to look at the mid and long-term vision, the mid and long-term growth of the company. And that is one of the most important. I mean, to invest in a ship like what we saw there with the opening, the CGM ship, and of course we kept a little show as well there for them. Those huge investments are needed, and that is not a short-term investment. So basically, they're going to build their business model and make sure it grows as we move forward in the future.
No, but when I travel throughout the region, I don't see the kind of activity in cargo like Maarten.
That is true. I think also too the transshipment business has increased tremendously. We also have, of course, the French side of the island. They import a lot of French products, so those are European products, and a lot of those products come in, of course, through the Dutch side as well. But I think we are an island which do consume a lot. If you compare us with Aruba and Curacao, I think our numbers are in line, I believe, with Curacao or Aruba. I'm not too sure, but we do about 75,000 TEUs per year. So, and I think it's about 24,000, 25,000 import full. So we are a destination consumes a lot, but also that has to do with the tourists as well. I mean, it has to do with the stayover as well with cruise because they consume as well.
All right. And when I look around the Caribbean, like I was telling you before, you got a bigger island than Maarten. You do not see the activity in cruise, you do not see the activity in container vessels. It's just amazing, this island.
Yeah, I mean, Oral, it's when we was talking, I do, look, we always like to downplay and to touch a lot on a negative part. But don't forget, everything what we do on St. Maarten is from international standards. I mean, if you know how you grew up, how I grew up, you know, we travel a lot. As Siman people, we travel a lot. I heard on your show when you were talking about the Minister of Happiness, but that's a separate discussion. Maybe we do need that Minister of Happiness so we can smile a little more. But coming back to what you were saying, that is really true. We are on a certain standard naturally. The question is now is that the other islands, of course, they're trying to pick up and trying to follow St. Maarten, and that is something you got to be careful with, because they too have started traveling now. You remember the days when you had no flights from St. Kitts to Miami?
No, they have.
Now you have 2 flights from St. Kitts daily going to Miami in the season as well as St. Maarten. So, you know, we gotta keep an eye on this. And look, it's healthy if the region is even becoming stronger. But we're still ahead. But we just need to step it up.
When it comes to Port St. Maarten, right, and there's a boardwalk there, are you really having the plans to really extend the boardwalk and continue on? Are you free to speak about that now, or you can't give any?
Oral, I don't want to, I don't want to go too much into that. You've been hearing me saying about Master Plan 2. Master Plan 2 has all different, let's say, different elements in the Master Plan 2. We hope to present that in detail more towards the shareholders. Well, we've been talking also to other people. But indeed, we are looking to make the connectivity more past Walter Plans. The boardwalk, extending the boardwalk, that's one of the parts of it. And also looking at the Fort Amsterdam, getting Fort Amsterdam back part of the connectivity with the boardwalk. So indeed, that is there. We even have investors which are very interested in getting that done. And I leave it to that. But there is a plan there for Master Plan 2, and one of the priorities from government as well is basically we had discussions with the port as well to make sure focus on the Master Plan 2, because it also comes back to your first discussion, and you're saying that there's only one little artery, little road going to Point Blanche, and we need to also look at how do you move away some of the movements from cruise over maybe to the other side or to another berth or Sinsa Bay. So that is something we are seriously looking at.
What about the construction of new hotel property there on the vacant lot? Is that going to happen?
Well, you had actually 2 projects at the port. You had the one from Royal Caribbean with its investors for the hotel. I believe they are now in discussions with another hotel chain, and they're trying to figure out and get the hotel element of it solved, because one of the agreements with government, as well as in the strategic agreement with Royal Caribbean, is that one of the most important bays for that project to be approved and to move forward would be the hotel element. That was clear in those agreements. And of course, when you have the hotel element, that creates more jobs. For the second project, which was actually in the port, the Dutch Village, of course, we had a litigation case on that, and that was settled. We're out of that, and hopefully in the next month we will start construction of the Dutch Village so that we get that.
So it's really going to go?
So yes, when we speak about Dutch Village, we have scaled down the project because there were conditions on the project with the cruise lines.
Okay.
But there's also more greenery going to come in the port. So it's like a central type park and that will also be in when there are no ships in port, that we will also have that accessible for the public. Of course, looking at security, we will need to balance that out well. But that's also one of the reasons we would like to have the public see more of the port.
All right, if you just joined us, we're speaking with Mr. Mingo. He's Chief Executive Officer, Port St. Maarten. You can call if you have a question or comment for Mr. Mingo. Take calls at 5422170. Mr. Mingo, our rainforest. Any idea when that will come online, that cruise ship passengers will be able to use the facility?
They have started construction. I know you read certain things in the media. Rainforest, I mean, the purchase of the property was, of course, took a bit of a while. Took about almost 7 years for us for that to happen. For whatever reason, that's not important right now. They've started construction, and within short, Rainforest Group will come with their public relation plan to show them when it's. I believe that the finalizing of the construction itself is in, I think, June 2017. They will be ready for next season, not this season. But also for the general public, when you talk about construction, it's not construction of buildings. Let me just be very clear on that. We were very much close involved as Harbor with that project because one of the cruise lines have actually supported and I believe invested some monies in that as well. Is also there more of the towers going up to Century Hill that you can go with a ski lift. It's like a ski lift going up there. So there will be minimal damage on the greenery part of it. They're also going to actually revamp and leave it in its original state. All those old buildings, so from the Rockland estate, they are going to be basically refurbished in its original state. Because I also heard some people in the general public say, oh, but they're going to build and construction and they're going to chop down this and clear out this. No, that's not. They're going to actually bring it back to its old, how it was in the past, and also have a real historical storyline on that. For the Emilion side of it, Emilion State decided, I think there's discussions going on I don't know how far that is to make sure that that property is upkept and maintained as well. So that is what I can say on the Rainforest project.
I heard there was another project in Point Blanche across the street from the port where the Bancampers was supposed to build a zip line. I haven't seen the drawings of it.
Well, there's a billboard now up, Oral. On if you drive tomorrow, you can drive to Point Blanche. If you drive back by just before Chesterfields, there's a billboard up, I believe, by the Boncamper family where there's like a kind of a trolley, like a kind of train, like in San Francisco, going up. And coming back down. I have no clue where that stands, where the development that stands. But you know, I always say, if you embrace new stuff, new ideas, you know, who am I to say?
Wait a minute, Mr. Mingo, you're telling me that it's right there with the port, so and you don't know? I mean, they're not going to work with the port or work?
No, the project from I believe from Boncamper is across the Chesterfield property.
Yeah.
That is not. We haven't have any agreements.
The port to say, look, guys, how we can work together.
Well, that will come after. We didn't. I don't. So I don't know in what stage that project is. Normally, what will happen is because of our strategic agreements.
Yeah.
For example, with the cruise lines, you had that with Rainforest, that you will automatically become a partner because there's a strategic agreement with the cruise lines. In this case, that has not happened. No.
But I'm sure you expect that to happen sometime in the future.
Well, for sure, what you will get is of course we will sit together with them. I believe they were also at Sea Trade or FC conference. I believe I saw some of the representatives there. But that will come once I believe when those things are formalized, you will normally have a natural discussion with the port because it all starts by the port and ends by the port.
There's no competition to Rainforest. There's some.
No, I think it's we got to be realistic. It's two different projects. Rainforest is a more high volume project. I think they can handle up to 500 passengers in the morning and 500 passengers in the evening.
Right.
So if you even put those two numbers together, which is 1,000 passengers, imagine you have 5 or 6 ships in port that day with average 4,500 passengers. So you see, so there's even more room to do other things. And I'll be honest with you, Oral, not all the passengers are interested in high volume tours. Not every tourist wants to go to Walt Disney, for example. Maybe they want to do something with a taxi. And for example, I had a gentleman who came to the port and basically he rented he was on an island and he rented a house, I believe on the program AB or ab.com. That's where you can put up your house and rent out your house.
Okay.
And the gentleman didn't want to stay in a hotel, and he actually wanted to stay in Colombia between the people. Mm-hmm. So online, you can put up your house for rent, and he stayed a week in Colombia because he wanted to be between the people. So you're right, if there are a lot of opportunities, but even online, if talking to the young entrepreneurs and to the general public as well, go online, because if you really look online, the cruise industry is very accessible online. There's so much information out there. The tours, what is happening. There's even now a local tour experiences that the people come off the ship and they go in groups and eat by families as well. So
really, yeah. Well, that's good. Let me take a call for you, Mr. Mingo. Oral Gibbes Live, your own caller. Hello.
Hello. Good evening, Mr. Gibbes.
Good evening, sir. How are you doing?
This is Henry Brookson speaking.
Oh, Mr. Brookson, how are you?
Good evening, Mr. Mingo.
Good evening, Mr. Brookson.
Yes, I've been listening to you, and I find your story very interesting. My question is, I have two questions. Has the port ever conducted a study to see how they're going to solve the bottleneck problem going to the harbor where traffic is concerned. And, thinking, you were talking about planning. Aruba has their nice tramway there. Isn't it that we should be thinking down the line and planning much better, because that is one of the problems we have. We do plan, but then we don't execute, and we change plans. An example, for instance, we have Link 7. We've been talking about that for many, many years. I don't know what the status is about it, but maybe we should be thinking like Leonardo da Vinci, out of the box. Don't you think it would be a good idea to make an overhead shuttle like you have in Miami, where you have shuttles taking you from one side of the airport to the other, and to build something like that from the harbor to, for instance, the Sucker Garden area, where you have a lot of space, where you could collect the passengers there, and from there you take them to the front side or wherever they want to be. Because I don't see really a 4-lane road coming from Phillipsburg, to the harbor, transforming the Erascan Boulevard widely, because you're limited in space. And if you have an overhead, let's say, a tramway, it creates a perfect view. It's also an excitement to the tourists. And I think we should even go much further and maybe and you are good in that, find an investor to make the tramway all the way to the airport. Of course, you're going to have people opposing it, but at certain points you have to take decisions for the island. Okay? So my second question, too, is, throughout the years, you have acquired a vast amount of experience at the port. You know the ins and outs. I think I understood that you said you've been there now for 15 years. Isn't it something, do you feel called to take yourself to a higher level and get involved in government, where you could steer the economy of this country? You have such a vast experience and knowledge. And I would like to see more people like you who have been working for the island throughout the years, and, to take up such positions. Those are my questions.
Mr. Brooks, before he asks, can I ask a question?
Yes?
Are you asking him to run for office?
Well, of course. I mean, if he run for office, he is a perfect example of young executives that we have on the island, in which, I would say, imagine there's not many challenges for him now at the port.
Right.
Right? So go to a higher level.
Well, thank you for calling, Mr. Brooks.
Well, Oral, actually, I want to thank Mr. Brooks. We've been working very closely together with his group as well on Rainforest and Emilia Wilson. What he's asked me on, I'll answer that later on a second point. But coming back to what Mr. Brookson is saying, he's on point. Of course, billing overheads and having a tram from the airport, I believe I was discussing that with Mr. Peters when we were in Miami. But it's easier said and done. But there is exactly where Minister Plaza came back and said, where is that plan? And that plan, we should sit, and in my opinion, as executive for one of the largest government-owned companies, is we get all the government-owned companies together and look at this, because infrastructure is not only roads, it's also to do with GB, Taylor, but indeed the road towards the port is small, but we also have to work with what we have now. Don't forget the land taxis. They also have jobs, 180 taxis in a port. You can't just say one day to the next, hey, we're going to build this, we're going to do that. I have to look as port. I'm also responsible for the social balance. That is a tricky part of the job. Yeah. The social balance of the numbers. Don't forget, we also have a very great water taxi system. My idea, and it actually connects to what Mr. Brookson is saying, is we need to have a master plan on how we deal with the infrastructure. Causeway alone is not only, Causeway is only part of the solution. He said Link 7, but when you look at Ring Road is very important. That is also element in there. We can expand on the water taxi distribution system. For example, the drop-off between the drop-off areas. So we should also look at certain hotspots for picking up from taxis. So not only the taxis, not only the tour buses. So that is a balance. You know, on the second point, you know, I don't have any political ambition. I have given a lot of years to the port, and I've always fully committed myself to help any government. Doesn't matter what color, what party. I will fully commit myself to make sure that we execute strategic plans in best interest for Maarten.
Well, Mr. Mingo, if you have political ambitions, keep them to yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's my advice to you. Because it's a very strange country where at times we don't want our brightest nor our best, and that's unfortunate. Let me take another call here. Oral Gibbes live and caller. Hello?
Hello?
You're on live caller. Hello? Did I call?
Yes, good evening. My name is Maarten. I'm watching the Oral Gibbes live show with Mark Mingo.
Yes.
And I was very desirous to input or make a comment, a very positive comment for Mark Mingo.
Go right ahead, ma'am. Go right ahead with your comment, man. Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, go right ahead with your comment.
Evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, good Oral Gibbes. Good evening, Mr. Mark Mingo.
Good evening, Reina.
Good evening. My name is Maarten.
All right, go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. I work for Mr. Romeo Fleming, Group of Companies in Saint-Maarten. Sir, I would like to commend you, sir, on all of your activities, actions, proactive actions. I have been traveling since 2013, representing Mr. Fleming's companies, as well as the island, as we promote one, of course, and have been congratulated for all of your input, as well as ours. And to make a difference into criticizing, I would like to thank you, sir, for thinking proactively, protective the island, and including each and every one of us in your actions and future actions in development, protection, and proactive forward and in front of all the other destinations which try indeed to learn from what we have been doing. And it's proudly that I say that, because it is something to be proud of, because, sir, you have been traveling internationally, saying and reporting what we do successfully. However, with all the challenges and problems that we have, of course, as a destination, as all international, and I would like to stand proud this evening, sir, as an adoptive St. Martiner. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Be part of all the activities and actions towards our tourism, which is our survival mode as well.
I'm just about out of time, ma'am, so I want to just give about 20
Thank you
seconds.
very much.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Mingo?
We're out of time already?
No, you can respond to.
Well, I know, Rena, I want to thank you for that as well. Look, we, as what I said, in the coming weeks we will also show the general public the private initiative of SECA. Ms. Rena is also part of that. But again, what we've seen here is that the private sector is stepping up to the plate as well. There's, as Rena said, there's a lot of challenges out there. But that challenge cannot only be fought by the port, or not can only be fought by government. It has to be pushed from a private initiative, and that is basically where we're moving into.
So, Mr. Mark Mingo, the minute is all yours. If you have anything to add in closing.
No, Oral, again, I want to thank you for having me here. You got me smiling, so maybe you should be the happy minister. But no, again, I'm doing this for a while now. I mean, a lot of developments have taken place. We've reached somewhere on a crossroad where a lot of new challenges are coming up. And again, the port itself and myself cannot do it alone. And I will be reaching out to all associations, the private sector, and the general public to make sure that we step up our game as well.
Well, Mr. Mingo, I want to thank you for coming in and wish you much success. And we hope that other government-owned companies, CEOs will do what you're doing keeping the public informed, because these companies are owned by the people of St. Maarten.
Thank you, Arul.
Thank you, sir.
Good night.
Good night. And that's it for now. I'll see you next time. Till then, good night. Take care. Bye.